Welcome to another episode of the Information Addicts Podcast. My name's Cassidy. I'm an information addict, and this is my podcast where I explore information, ideas, and beliefs and try to do those things more responsibly. Today, I have a live and in-person conversation with my friend Andrea. She is known online as Andrea with the Bangs, and she has a podcast called She Wonders Why. She has a friend that I met through online means, but was able to meet with her in person for the first time. So we decided to have a conversation, and it was really wonderful. It was great to see you, Andrea. I know you're watching. But we talked about social media and sort of the effects and sort of what it's like to be a participant in a lot of social media and social media platforms. And I talked with her too a little bit what it's like to be a woman in sort of the YouTube, IDW, thought exploration space and how she navigates that. So if that sounds interesting to you, enjoy this conversation. Andrea with the Bangs, welcome to my home.
Hi, yes, I'm here. It's weird.
Yeah.
But like in a good way.
Well, it should be normal. Like it actually doesn't feel as weird as I thought it would be. It feels very normal.
Right. I know. It's like I knocked on the door and you opened it, thankfully, and that waved goodbye to my little family. And then I walked in and it was like, oh, like she's a person.
Yeah, you look exactly how I would think you would look in person.
And you do too. I know. But it's a little bit more 3D. Mm-hmm. Like, oh.
But it wasn't like a shock. It wasn't a shock like,
who is this two-dimensional being in 3 dimensions? Yeah.
Well,
no,
when I met Job, he looked different than how I thought he looked on the screen. Yeah, just like a little bit different. Nothing like crazy. Like he still looked like himself.
Well, you're my first of meeting in person from internet people.
Oh my gosh, that's so exciting.
Yeah. But like, I think you gave me your stats. No. I asked how tall you were like a while ago. And so I was like, oh, you said like 5'6", 5'7". It's like, okay. And I kind of was expecting that. I think if people are short, like really short or really tall,
yeah,
and the person doesn't know, that's I think a stark thing.
Yeah, I think if you hadn't told me how tall you were, right, I might have been like, oh my god,
hello, giant lady. I know. I'm 5'10", by the way. You needed to know.
Anyways, well, welcome to the podcast. So happy to have you on. I've been wanting to talk to you for a while, and the fact that you are here and I get to do it in person is fun because I much prefer to like do the stuff in person, even though the internet stuff is like convenient. Mm-hmm. So for the people who don't know you, give a little background. Who are you? What are your hopes and your dreams?
I was born on a cold day in January. No, you're like way back. No, okay. What am I? Who am I? These are the questions. These are the kind of questions I ask on Twitter. Who are you really? So okay, why am I here? How do I know you even? So I suppose it starts. Doesn't everything? No, not really. It starts with Jordan Peterson. The Peterson wave, you could say. So I heard about Peterson through my sister and started listening to his lectures and started listening to his biblical lectures, particularly were what I really enjoyed. And I never had this, and then I want to go online and
talk about it.
Yes, exactly. And ask people questions about this and that and, But as I was interested more in his psychological readings of things, but then he does have, political situations. That's kind of why he's big. And then others started kind of coming around him, making this little intellectual dark web or IDW. I'm going to stop looking at the camera because I'm just like ridiculous. Sorry.
It's all right. They love it.
I know. Oh, I'm sure he's like, hey guys. Oh my goodness. I'm the worst guest. I'm so informal. Like, hey.
No.
Anyway.
I don't think you've seen my podcast. It's not like this formal thing where everybody has to be like.
I know, you just seem so put together and I'm all like, hey girl.
Oh no, I'm a hot mess. That is a facade.
Okay, well we can they'll accept us for who we are. So anyway, so I started being concerned about freedom of speech. And because in Canada, it's sort of worse in some places, but maybe not. It just depends on the city and the situation. Like it's definitely not worse than Portland, but I mean, that stuff with Lindsay Shepherd at Wilfrid Laurier, that was pretty totalitarian feeling, you know? And so I just was like inspired, I guess you could say, because I was like, oh, I'm a stay-at-home mom. I can't be fired. I mean, hopefully. And I'm like,
it's called a divorce, Andrea.
Well, I'm thinking of like the state coming in and taking my children. They're like, you've got a podcast.
Well, that's a
called Andrea with the Bangs. Like, whoa, and you have opinions. I don't even have opinions. I just ask questions. That's the thing. Whatever. Anyway, I had these sort of, I actually really wanted to just make a difference. Like I wouldn't have done all this if I didn't feel like compelled to.
Yeah.
So I, did a very like mini version of like what you did with regards to like, oh, here's a whole system. It's like, okay, Amazon basics. Thank you. And then just started interviewing people about sort of the topics that were quite in with the intellectual dark web at the time. I even actually covered like the intellectual dark web specifically, like interviewing different peoples about what they thought about it and concepts about it. And then I sort of not purposely moved into the meaning space because that's where it all ends up.
Yeah.
Like, who are we? Why are we? Why do we care?
What more?
It is. It's
meat.
You guys. I'm like, you guys. You're you. Sorry. I'm like, you guys. Like as if Cassidy's plural. I need to remember.
Well, I do have multiple personalities.
Right. Okay. Well, I'm excited to see those in the time. So it is so much more, meaningful, covering meaning and purpose other than like, oh, like my rights, my freedoms. Now, mind you, sorry, Americans. I'm Canadian. And there's just not this like intense freedom, there's not quite as much as that in me.
We love our freedom. You're only half American, so you
I know
only
I
got
am
about half
half
of what we have.
Yes, and so and I did like grow up with my mom was American, and I sort of get it, but at the same time, as a Christian though, I'm like, oh, we're supposed to lay down our rights and our freedoms at the cross, and consider it pure joy whenever you face trials of many kinds. Just quoting scripture, because that's how I roll. So. Anyway, but I was really fervent about the freedom of speech thing. But as I moved into the meaning space, I just was finding different types of people to interview. I kind of got out of that more niche space and into, it is a very niche. What do I want to talk about? It's the nichest because it's just me. And I did change my podcast name. It was very confusing before. It was The Other 95. And I meant like, because everyone else is like crazy. Sorry, that's not right. Everyone else is normal. And then it's only like 5% online that are super loud, but like no one got it. Like no one understood it. And I was like, I don't get it anymore. So I changed it to my YouTube channel is Andrea with the Bangs. And then my podcast is She Wonders Why. So that's why I'm like, it's the nichest. It's whatever I'm wondering at the time.
It suits though.
It's broad enough, but specific enough to me.
Yeah.
So where are we going here? Oh, wow. I'm here talking to you. Okay. So in the end, and I was worried about being a little too stiff and formal.
I bring it out of people.
I know you just like bring out the silliness in me, Cassidy. So anyway, I ended up just kind of going in the direction of more meaning and more purpose and more like, I even was going into that atheist space versus religious space. And that was good. It really was very, like I really took it to heart and it really kind of set in, I guess you could say. And where I set out to, defend freedom of speech, I ended up accidentally attracting a lot of atheists and professor atheist type folks on Twitter. I don't know why. I don't know where all the Peterson Christian atheists went, but they weren't there on my Twitter feed. And they were just very like, oh, I'm so excited for you to become an atheist soon, Andrea. And I was like, what? And then Paul Vanderklay came up in the radar, and I ended up joining Bridges of Meaning. I just mentioned this on Salty and Fresh, that I actually got the invitation from PVK himself. Oh, wow. So I guess that's like a kind of big deal. Like not really, but it was like, oh, the man himself. Even though he's like, oh, I don't want to be a celebrity. I'm like, too bad, Paul.
You're forcing you.
Yeah, you're not one of those regular pastors. You're a cool pastor, and cool pastors attract a following apparently on the internet. We're in need of the cool pastor. So I joined, but I didn't like get it because I had never done Discord. Like Twitter is the most that I mean, Facebook I guess exists, but Twitter is the most that I'd branched out, and that's not really even branching out. Mm-hmm. But it was like Discord, it was very different from Twitter. It was way less egocentric, and I was like, oh, I don't matter here, but not in a way that it sounded. Okay, let me explain. So it's on Twitter, you have your profile and you can have your own little, tweets and whatnot, and you could just kind of hang out. Even if you have enough followers, you can be like, what are my friends saying to me? And you can just stay in that space. You don't even really have to branch out as much if you don't want to, but you can, but you can also just be like, I feel like just like looking at seeing what people are saying to me. Mm-hmm. But on Discord, it's like, oh, that thought I put, no one liked. And they just like let it go by in general, in the hashtag general. And I'm like, this is good for me. I'm not as egocentric here.
Yeah, bruises your pride and ego a little bit.
Yeah, and then I just also like, didn't love going on as much, even though I was like, this is good for you. But then I'm like, but also I'm bored now because no one like is interested in the things. Not always. Sometimes I'm like, oh, I got a topic they liked. But anyway, so man, I may as well have started back in a cold day in January. Like that's how long I'm taking to actually get to like cut to the chase. Okay. So that's how it started. I mean, people were tagging me at first because I was like the shiny new friend. But then it was when people stopped tagging me, I stopped going on. Because I'm like, I didn't know how to jump in. I also didn't look at the other channels when I probably should have done that, because there's a lot more going on in like the, talking about Christianity, Q&A and like whatever. But I did miss, I did feel as like the day I joined, I felt like, I can be myself, but I don't have to be afraid of, like, I trust these people. Mm-hmm. Because like I said, I had the whole atheist space in, and like not just atheists, like there are a couple of angry atheists there who were like, they're not angry at me, but they're like, you need to understand that Jesus was a fraud. And I'm just like, okay.
We
anyway,
got some of those.
Yeah,
I'm sure.
Yeah, like, and it just like, but it just gets old.
It's a different vibe. Like, and yeah. I don't do Twitter. I don't like social media in general. And this is actually a great pivot because that's what we're going to talk about today. It's like the social media, and like just the whole dynamics of that, how we get our information and how we operate with that and connect with people with that. Mm-hmm. And so I'm actually an inspiring digital minimalist. I can't be because of what I do, but it is what it is. But
well, you gotta like be the change. Be the
change I want to see in the world. So I'll get to a level and then be like, screw it.
I'm gonna like minimize it. So wait, okay, but then we started doing the chat, the audio, and mm-hmm. and Paul Vanderklay started doing his Q&A. Yeah. And but I did forget. In the summer, I joined the book club, and we did Lilith, and that was with Sherry and a couple other people, and that helped me to feel a little bit more at home. And like actually speaking to people. Yeah. And then we started doing the Q&A with Paul, and then we just started hanging out after. And then when people turn on their video, it was like, oh, hello. Yeah. Yeah. I guess like for the record, if anyone doesn't know, you can just do like an audio option and not have your camera on, or you can have both. And I like both so much better.
So yeah, this is where for me Discord is much more appealing in that it's you have like you can join a group and then it's like the certain topic and then they've got the text channels and you have different like topics that they have within our Discord, and you can design a Discord whatever way you want. So if you just want one voice channel or one text channel, that's what you can do. But with Bridges of Meaning, there's all these text channels, and I don't spend much time in text channels.
Yeah.
Very rarely. If I see a comment that sort of like intrigues me every so often, I'll write back and like go back and forth a little bit. But I don't spend my time going through text channels. I enjoy jumping into the voice channels because instead of just, talking back and forth on text, you can actually have a conversation. You jump in and talk one-on-one with people and hear people. And I think for me personally, I connect better that way. And I think it's much better to understand people and get more nuance. And you can hear the inflection of a voice and all of these things. And you don't have time to sit and construct some sentence that's like, can either be cutting or like overly complicated or whatever. It's just like we're back and forth, we're interacting, and it's much faster to get the information. And so it's a different type of social media platform in a way that almost doesn't even feel like social media to me.
No, not at all. I know it. I'm like, oh, it's my friends. Like, and also with the new, I have to give props to Paul Vanderklay for being so creative and in starting that open studio. He started it off by calling it the Truman Show, but that is such, I want to say, an innovation almost.
So for someone who doesn't know what it is, what would you describe the open studio as?
Okay, so actually I did this with my aunt yesterday because she was noticing that I was going on my phone. But to me, like, I just like was checking quickly because I wanted to just write something quickly. But to her, she's like, oh, it is like if you stop and check it, she just noticed it. Whereas for me, I'm like, but I was quick. It was just 2 seconds. But she notices it more, I think. She didn't grow up with that. I mean, I didn't really grow up with that, but it's more normal for, I mean, I'm going to be 35 in a few weeks, but no. In 1 week. So I'm like, for us young, I'm like, or whatever I am.
You're young.
Yeah, youngish. I feel like we're just kind of like, but this is just normal. Like I only did it for 1 second. But so I was explaining to her, I'm like, we were talking a little bit about the social media distraction factor. And I mentioned about the open studio and how, like at Christmas, I was making some pies. I mean, some people redid a bathroom and like are welding things. Like, oh, what's so-and-so up to? What are they making? And it's just having your camera on with your mic muted and working on things. Like, and I fold laundry, and sometimes people pop by and chat for a minute, and then we all mute again. It just depends on who's around and what topics get brought up. But more or less, you kind of start off by like just like going to work and doing your thing. Like I said, I'm like, it's nice to be like, hey, here's the pie I made.
Yeah, but it's mildly voyeuristic, especially if you're not.
You're
like, because if you're off and you're working and you're doing your thing and you don't even have the camera on, so you're not noticing it, and it's just like sort of this. Like
what are you doing?
Well, kind of experiment of like, hey, we're all at home and we have like no accountability. Let's just come, let people watch, work, and then every so often you might be able to like have a quick conversation or something.
Right.
But if there's people who'll just jump on and like look and not understand what's going on, and you see all of these people like on their day.
Oh, right. If people don't understand if it's a new person, they'll be like, what? Yeah, but I mean,
I don't know.
They'll learn. Like that's the thing about these platforms. I find it's like you just learn. You just have to, or you just don't come back.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I don't know how I feel about the open studio.
Really? Okay. See, I'm all like, it's such a positive thing. Well, I like it because I get things done.
I don't mind that it's there.
Yeah.
I don't, unless I see that mics are open. I generally don't join because like what I like to do, like I've worked on it before, but like I saw people talking, so I just put it on, did my work, and listened to other people talk. And so then it was like, oh, it's kind of like a live podcast.
Right.
But yeah, when it's just so quiet, like I get the appeal because then like it kind of gives that accountability and I can't like go, screw around. But like every so often someone will start talking and then it's like, like on certain things, like if I'm editing or, you know, working on a video,
Right.
it's hard to be able to like listen and talk as opposed to like, you know, I'm scanning pictures and.
Well, you can just be like the librarian role and be like, excuse me, can we shush? Yeah. So that's true. The kinks aren't worked out of it quite yet.
Well, I don't mind it. I think it's nice that people can talk, and the availability, the quietness is almost like harder. But like for me, just to sit and work and be quiet, like as soon as somebody's talking, I'm probably gonna like.
I know, because it is. It's like, well, what is this? Is this a workspace or a quiet, or is it? I do get it, and I very much. For me, what it is, I feel like going on Discord, but I also feel like I should get some things done. So I'll get that half dopamine rush.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So it's like it's sort of the responsible. I will get things done.
The responsible, irresponsible choice.
Yeah. Yes, it's the golden mean of such things. So. Anyway.
Okay. Well, yeah. So I mean that kind of explains, for anybody who doesn't know, like Discord and Bridges of Meaning and how that runs. But
and that's how I met Cassidy.
That's how we met.
And I made it. And I answered your first question finally.
X-Men origin story.
Yeah. Yes. Exactly.
So how would you say like the effect in your life is of social media in general? Because you're on Twitter a lot and all this other stuff. I have Facebooks and Twitters and things that I don't really use that I need to get better at for, you know, my businesses and such. But like, how do you see that manifest in your life and the way that you're consuming and the way that you're interacting with people?
Okay. There's the good and the bad. So before I had to, because, you know, I always replace one, addiction with another. So I was, when I first got on Twitter, I was like, I want to promote my YouTube channel that doesn't exist yet. I think that I was on for about 6 months before I got it. I just had YouTube channel coming soon for like 6 months. But so I just was good at it because I was really pleasant there, and people were like, wow, you're nice. And I'm like, thank you. But I also was in that, you know, intellectual dark web space where people were rallying around that, and so that kind of helped me with getting a bit of a following of just like, hey, we're all like in that space together, and then I, you know, found some people who are more on the intellectual dark web sort of. They were the critics of that, you know? And so I started finding them and started being like, wait, what? What? You guys have a problem with these fellas? You know? And that was interesting getting to know that. But I was on it a lot because I was like consumed, you could say, by what was going on with all of that. And also just interested because someone said this the other day. So I've had individuals where I can talk the way that we talk on the Discord about these topics. And you could even say on Twitter that happens to an extent, but I haven't had a group where I've been able to like be like, hey, everyone, and we're all interested in these sort of like this type of topic. By this type, I mean, what do I mean?
What do you mean, Andrea?
We'll just say the meaning crisis type stuff, and along with sort of theology and orthodoxy within that space.
Okay.
But also before, like outside of that, you can even say like the Jordan Peterson psychological meanings of such things as well.
Yeah.
That's what Peterson kind of did. He brought those out of the woodwork who were like, you like talking about that too, you know? Yeah. So I don't even know why I'm going there. So that's just an aside. So back to me being on social media. So I was on, as it was happening from my perspective, it was like, this is so interesting. And I'm talking with such cool people. And like, I find people for my podcast or / YouTube channel in order to interview. And that has worked out well. But then I was on for like so many hours a day. Like, I mean, of course I would mother my children at the very least. But I also, free time was that, especially the thing is like, I mean, I guess I wasn't on during the pandemic. Like I was on before, but especially during the pandemic, it was like, okay, now we have nowhere to go and we're all here. So it was good. Like I even started becoming friends with some of the people who I like interviewed and other people who I just found, and we were just friends. But then, yeah, I just like, my husband was, you know, like, hey, maybe like, what about taking like a break for a day? You know, like things like that. But then when I joined the Discord, I really, not initially, but when I really started getting on it more in like February, March last year, I really pulled back, not purposely, but I just enjoyed the Discord a little bit more. And so I would be like on Twitter a lot less. But then I'm just on the Discord more. So it's like, oh, like, you know, yeah, it's sort of like equal and opposite reactions and whatnot. So, you know, physics, right? That fits here. So anywho, so okay. Like I remember even being on Facebook too much. Now I'm like, Facebook. I was on Facebook too much when? Like, but I do remember that being on it too much like years ago. And I think that being on the open studio has helped because I'm just like on, but not on.
You're slowly weaning yourself
kind
away.
of. Yeah. Cause I'm trying to think like what, but then my thought life, even like my Christian, walk. Cause I remember when I first got on Twitter, I was at the space where I didn't like calling myself a Christian because I didn't like the connotation, what I knew people would be thinking, especially the people that I was hanging out with. I knew the judgments that come along. So I was like, I'm a follower of the way, you know, like, you know, that's like what early Christians call themselves, or just follower of Jesus or whatever. But I just was like, I don't like calling myself a Christian. That's so pretentious sounding, but right. I know I was in the space. That was the space I was in, but I kind of came through this space of like deconstruction and reconstruction. And it was like, for me, that I also have a Bible study group, / book club group of ladies that I meet with in person. Well, before COVID, like on Thursday evenings. And so, you know, they were there along with me during it, but it was really on Twitter. And then and then I'd say it was really helpful, like being on the Discord for helping me kind of come through it, and watching Jonathan Peugeot's videos. That really, really helped actually. But so going through social media in those, since 2018, June 2018 was when I joined Twitter. I really came through something and changed. And that was because of social media, and it was very deeply personal, the things that I, you know, has changed through. But then also I was very distracted over those times. So it's sort of like a double-edged sort of like good and bad. Because, you know, what I can't see the, you know, little things my kids were trying to show me that I missed, you know. I love my kids, you guys. Like this is the joke. I'm like, ugh, my kids, I have to go like deal with them, guys. Bye. On the Discord. And it's like, I do love them, but that's the thing, is these social media platforms are like designed to keep you engaged there instead of out in the world, right? You know, but to my personal gain, I've really worked through a lot of things in my thought life and met a lot of really meaningful like people, and relationships have come through that. So I'm kind of like I don't want to say in the middle. I'm such a centrist, but I would say I'm more on.
I sit on a fence.
I know, I'm a fence sitter. I know, what can I say? But I just like it. I like the stuff, you know. But I also see the concerns.
Well, I mean, I think for me, I don't think that social media itself is good or bad. It is, right? And it's the way that it's used and the way that we operate within the systems that really affect like the good and the bad that comes out of it. And I think for me, as a person who like loves connection and loves like bridging and understanding of people, social media sites can be very overwhelming and discouraging because they have this ability to create false identities and false perceptions of people, and they kind of dehumanize people. You just see them as a page and not as a person. And people can be very venomous, especially when it comes to religious or political conversations. And so,
or disingenuous because they're trolls.
Yeah.
I don't understand that. Like I just
That's a whole topic that's way too big to even understand the psychology
but it's
of
not
that.
them. Yeah, it's a facade, or it's an aspect or a facet of them, and you don't really get to know some of these people.
Right. So I guess my question would be like, how do we, one, embrace it authentically, not let it rule our worlds, but also, how do we manage that minefield that is like internet culture?
Goodness. I mean, I'm so glad that you came to me with this question, Cassidy, because I am the expert. No, I know people. I've interviewed a psychologist who was like, "Oh no, there's nothing." He's like, I'm just like, thanks.
There's nothing we can do.
Well, he's like, it's designed to do the thing it's doing, So I don't necessarily agree, because I think I've seen some people who have there's an app for that. There's apps where you can get where you have Twitter for 2 hours, and and not just not being on. It's this time and this time in the day, and if you don't go on it then you just miss it.
Yeah.
And so I think that there are some tools that are coming out that kind of just force you choose to be forced.
Well, we're not a culture of very disciplined people,
right?
I don't think.
Really, yeah, I know.
And so I think it's hard when it's like, oh, set your own limits. Like we almost need these like limit setters to help us. But
so that's helpful.
I think it takes time. I mean, I look at the time that I spend on the Discord, and it goes in waves, like, because that's how my world works. Like sometimes I'm very busy and I can't be on, so I'm like MIA. And then sometimes it's like, oh, I'm on there very, very consecutively and a lot. And so for me, it's like the times when I spend a lot of time on there, I think there have been a couple times where I'm like, oh, I need to just back off and like, this is manifesting itself in an unhealthy way. But with the Discord, I found it to be actually creating a better mindset for me as I go out into life and engage with other people. It's helped me grow. And the type of interaction, the conversations that's happening in that space are actually beneficial compared to maybe like the times when I would scroll on Facebook and like it's mindless and unintentional and like I'm not actually making genuine connection. So and like I think there's a different sort of feel with each platform. Like I think Instagram is much more about like it's all pictures, right? So it's much more about image, and so it's a lot. So it's a lot of like constructing like this idea of how you look, and I'm not good at that.
Life. No,
right?
yeah,
and
I know.
I'm not good at that. I'm very like, this is me, like all, and I'm not like, and like the idea of like having to stop and take a picture of my life and be like, I gotta show people. Like they don't care. Nobody cares.
Oh, we need more of that attitude, girl.
But like, with the Discord, it's like, oh, I'm like engaging with people about big ideas, and it's really interesting, and I'm actually making friendships and connections, and there's like things that are growing out of it, manifesting it, that are very good. And like when I look at Facebook or Twitter, I see a lot of like political conversations and virtue signaling and like news being passed through memes. And to me, there's a lot of like danger and all of like the unintentional consumption of all of these things.
Right.
So yeah, it's.
So I'm just thinking, because I asked for people who don't have our Discord. Because like, I mean, our Discord is actually, that's one of the things that when I interviewed Paul.
Sounds so tribalistic.
I know.
Discord
I need to say this. I know. But like I when I interviewed Paul back when I first joined the Discord, I think I interviewed him pretty quickly after joining, and he's like, that Discord is full of a lot of very special people. And it was like, you can take it a few ways, but he meant it genuinely, like a really special, loving, kind, open-minded people. And so I've asked, I remember I've asked Twitter, like, what if it just shut down? Or what if, is it a good in your life? I think I've asked that. And I've had a lot of people write back in the comments saying, I can't talk to anyone around me about these things. Again, whatever these things is, but like these things, these topics. This is where I engage with people, like-minded people who are, maybe not agreeing on everything, but want to engage me about such and such a topic.
Yeah.
And so for them, that's their version of our Discord. Like that's their place to connect with people who are, on that level.
Yeah.
You know, so because I'm like, oh, well, like, it's not my Discord, but not everyone can be on the Discord. And so some have sort of like philosophy Twitter. There's different Twitters, like different Twitters. And like they're making their memes. Like they're going crazy, they're talking about Camus when I thought it was actually pronounced Camus, and like, sorry, my bad. Anyway, but like, they're engaging with people. And I guess, I mean, if you're a philosophy student, you have people to engage with, but like, there might be some people who don't have like a place to engage with these types of thoughts, like in their little town that they live in, or like whatever. So as much as there's that venom, and I've seen the venom, especially in the beginning, when there were trans issues, and I can't remember the other things, like with regards to, because Jordan Peterson and the whole Bill C-16 kind of revolved around the trans issues. And I remember, and that Gillette ad came out, I think within the first few months of me joining Twitter. It was this sort of like, we need to be better men. And it's like, by Gillette. Like, you see, that's the thing. I'm like, you don't remember the ad? That ad? Like the ad, Cassidy?
I know I make movies, but I do not watch TV.
No, it's because it's such a niche thing on like Twitter. So it just showed a lot of toxic masculinity, you could say. And like, my little corner of Twitter was outraged. They're like, how dare they say that all masculinity is toxic? It kind of went from like, look at where we were, and like, different like really terrible things of men treating women badly and kids badly. And then they're like, but we're starting to get better. And then like a few good things, and I remember that was where I like went into the fray, and like, it was like trying to change minds, and then like, and I really thought I was making progress with one person, and then they just turned around and were like, no, your experience isn't valid. And I'm like, I tried. So, but I've sort of come away from that.
Like your experience as a woman, or what?
Yeah. Cause I think we were talking about like the whole being told to smile thing, and this was a male feminist. So that was interesting. And do you have a story about it?
Well, I have a joke about that my friend always says about male feminists that I don't feel like I should put on the internet.
Well, you can tell me later. I have a feeling it's like, don't date them.
Kind of. Yeah. In that frame.
Yeah. So I think I said I've never had anyone tell me to smile. Any male be like, you should smile, you look better.
I have.
So like, but like, okay, but like, I'm a very smiley person, Cassidy. Not that you're not. That's the thing. I don't know. Like, I never have had that. At least that I remember.
I've had a couple people. I didn't take it super personally.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of times it was like, or the first time I was like 15, and like some guy was trying to like in my English class were trying to hit on me. Like, you should smile more. And
you're like, you should.
He used to always give me chocolate and be like, chocolate makes people smile. And I'm like, I had chocolate this morning.
You can take that and go give it to a gal who cares. Yeah, no, you're like, you sad little like 15-year-old trying to flirt with me. You're like, chocolate and smiling.
I was a bit of a man hater then too. So
it
was just like, if you hit on me.
Oh,
like I was like, I had guy friends and I actually got along with men very well. But if you saw me as any sort of like
romantic partner,
no, we're done.
How dare you? Oh my goodness, don't even get me started. I was a little bit, but like, I was a little bit. I don't know what I'm doing, but
yeah, I kind of feel bad about some of the things that I did as a.
Well, you can just make up for it now. Cassidy, we all have those things, but there's a little bit of grace given to like age 18 and under. You'd hope, but anyway.
Well, we've stumbled into an interesting topic.
Yes. Here we go. Here come the ladies.
Yeah. I generally don't like talking about women and women's issues. I think it gets a lot of play.
But it's just so interesting.
But like, what is your perspective of being sort of a woman on social media in this arena where I think there aren't a lot of women?
Okay. So here's the thing. Everybody. So here, I don't have the as typical an experience because I might miss a lot of things, by the way, because that's sort of my accidental thing is like, I'm a little oblivious and slightly naive. So there could have been things that I just missed, but this is my reason. So on Twitter particularly, I have cultivated for myself a space of, oh, Andrea's really nice. Don't be mean to Andrea.
You're not that nice.
And I'm like, yeah, I try to tell them. I literally, I'm like, guys, I just yelled at my kids this morning. And they're like, you're so vulnerable and open. We love you even more. And I'm like, but I'm trying to paint a picture of me not being perfect, though. And now you just like said, no, but you're wonderful. And I'm like, guys, please tell, I'm not perfect.
She's not that nice.
You're like, okay. Now I'm like, well, I am kind of nice, Cassidy. Oh my gosh. No. So I'm a regular person. And well, actually that is something that through that little discussion, I found, no one can be fully themselves when there's facets online. Like you can't help but present certain spaces, like yourself in a way to certain spaces. So that was what I had to accept is, okay, so they're just going to think of me as this, whatever it is that I show. I don't mean to, but it just happens. So that was that. But I don't like, okay, the example is someone had messaged me over a number of months, just randomly, because I have my DMs open on Twitter, which I'm sort of regretting. It is, and I think I need to actually close them because I wanted to have it open for my podcast in case people wanted to discuss anything, but it's not going that way as much as I wanted it to. So I might just put an email and be like, email me if you want to talk about my YouTube channel.
Yeah.
So, anywho, so I had someone suggesting some things about, for like, oh, maybe it'd be interesting if you did a Twitter thread about blank. And I was like, oh yeah, that's an idea, but it was something I had to do research for and I just didn't do it. So there were a couple little small message back and forth. And then the guy got really mad at me that I didn't follow through on his suggestions and, didn't add him as a friend or like follow him back. And that I talk with certain people and not him out on the main timeline. And I'm like, I didn't know who they were. Like, I don't know you. And so then I tweeted about it because I'm like, guys, what just happened? And, and people were like, oh, that's a nice guy. And I'm like, what's a nice guy? They're like, oh, it's like, hey, I'm like, I'm not one of like those regular guys. I'm a nice guy. Yeah. It's like these, like where they're like, no, I'm not like, you can talk to me. Like, I'm a nice guy. But then if you don't do the things they want, they turn venomously angry and mean and cruel. Mm-hmm. And people were like, how long have you been on Twitter for? I'm like, since 2018. And they're like, wow, I'm surprised this is your first encounter with a nice guy. And I think partially, I don't really know. I guess it's because of me just being a nice girl genuinely. I don't know. Like, I don't know why it hasn't happened more.
I don't know. It's interesting.
And I haven't really checked all of the DMs because I try not to check them. I don't. I've anything with media, I don't click on it. I'm like, hey, that's for my husband to look at.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a penis or two.
There isn't. I know, but as far as I know, there hasn't been, and I haven't looked. But my husband, like, I need to have him go through all of my DMs. Like, by the way, like, if you DM me and you send me media and we're not friends, I'm just gonna have my husband open it. So, like,
which will make him concerned that you're
on the internet. I know. So yeah. So anyway, I haven't had a lot of haters or trolls. Like, a lot of women get negativity for invading male spaces, I guess you could say. But like on Twitter, it's not quite as much like that.
But that doesn't even seem like it was negativity for you being in a male space. It seems like he had this perception, this expectation that you would know him and have this perception that he knew you better than he did, which is sort of understandable because you're sitting out there and you're putting out videos and you have, a significant following. So they all feel like they know you. Right. But they don't know you.
Right.
Like, I know. Even on the camera, that's just like a version of you, right? Like you're sitting and you're presenting but it's not like you. It is, but it's not like...
Right. Come to the open studio and watch me be like, not yelling at my kids because it's muted, but being like... Anyway.
But yeah, so you get this perception that they know you, and then, it turns when that expectation isn't like met. And there definitely is that sort of like white knight, nice guy. Like,
it is. And I feel like you can have such things with both male and female YouTubers, but I think that... again, I haven't received a lot of it, but I think that there's something about that women have to watch out for a little bit more than the men. Like I've heard of bad situations. There's a gal that I follow who is what they call a thought. She's not a thought anymore. THOT.
And for those who don't know, I know that.
Oh, do I have to explain it?
I can explain it if you want.
You take it.
So thought being an acronym for that hoe over there.
I didn't even know that's what it meant.
Yeah.
I just know, like, oh yeah, she's got like the Kim Kardashian curves. That's all I know.
Yeah.
But she has had to, she's shut, I think she can't shut down her Instagram, but she wants to. And she has an alternate Twitter as well as her regular one. And she's like asking like, hey, does anyone know about like internet security, IP address security systems? Like she's had people like find her and she's had to go stay with her parents because it's been so bad. And she actually wrote like, I just wanted to shut down my main Twitter account for some reason. Sorry, not Twitter. Instagram account. I don't know why she couldn't, but she was like, I'm so tired of needy men. Like, but again, that's also a space that I don't really go into, like that sort of self-objectification space, because that's empowering apparently these days, but I don't engage in that, and
right.
Women who do, men find, I think, that to be a more of an invitation to be like, oh, right. So this is what you like.
Well, the perception you put out is like, it definitely affects the way that men are going to like interact with you.
Yeah.
And like I've noticed this sort of working in the film industry, in that like I've had a lot of women say like, I don't feel like men hear me, or like I feel uncomfortable in a room full of men,
mm-hmm.
and I don't. I'm like, I'm very bold and direct, and
right.
so like I'm sure some people think I'm like a harpy, but like whatever. Like I've just never had a problem, and like being in a room full of guys, I kind of mm-hmm. just feel like one of the, like, I'm just palling around and one of the pals,
right?
And I don't put out that vibe like I want to get hit on, I want all of this stuff.
Right.
And I think when you're in this sort of Instagram space where you are putting out even a perception, and not even some of these Instagram models are extreme and like they're pushing a line.
OnlyFans territory, yeah.
Right, but like even for some who are looking to do like fashion or like image based, I think there's much more of like this perception that a man can like then come and approach you than
right.
someone like me who like, no, like I'm not putting that out there, and right. like whatever.
Oh man, we're hitting such because it's like, well, what were you wearing? Like, oh my goodness, that's
that's not what I mean at all. That's not what I mean at all.
Yeah.
And I don't think that, I think it's wrong for men to like, just because they put themselves out in a certain way, that therefore that gives them the right to do
right.
those things. I don't think that's right at all.
Right.
I do think that there are certain
but there are cues that exist,
yes, and like cues where it's like, if my boobs are hanging out, like
there's cues that
as
are
a woman who's like
triggered.
Completely straight, I can't stop looking at your boobs. Like,
right.
It's just like, oh
no, and that's the line that's so difficult. It's like, I would never be like, well, what were you wearing?
No.
To victim blame. But I also see that there are certain mechanisms within us biologically that are triggered.
Well, I think it's just good for women to know, to be protective. Like, hey, right. like, guys shouldn't take this as a signal, but they're going to. Some of them are going to, and like, even if you're not putting out those signals, they're still going to be
aware.
There. But like, I look at, I go to a bar, and it's like, or like I'm in comedy, and like a lot of women talk about, a lot of like people hitting on them or being inappropriate to them, and I have not had a lot of that. I have had some of that. I have not had a lot of that, and like there are some people that I have been friends with that I'm like, I feel like they like me, but they never do anything. But I think right. it's just the perception, and like they know I'm pretty traditional, and so I think for them, they just sort of like, oh, I don't even want to like right. go there.
Yeah.
And for other people, maybe it's a little bit different. They're a little like more open and flirty. They see it as like this sort of option. And so it's like kind of trying to find that balance of like, well, what is the appropriate line? Like, why is it bad for a guy to tell you, oh, you're really pretty? But some people
right.
are really triggered by that. And I lived in that space for a while, so I understand that completely.
Right.
But it's kind of this balance of like, where are our communication triggers sort of like
This
lining
is
up?
an age-old question, but now online, it's even more, I don't know. It didn't make it more simple.
Right. Well, and like, so, to go back to Peterson, had some of this Peterson thing of like, well, why do women wear makeup?
Right.
And like, he got in a lot of trouble for that. But I'm listening to it and hearing it and thinking, okay, he's not actually saying women shouldn't wear makeup, and they're just sexually, propositioning themselves by putting on lipsticks.
How dare they? Red, you don't even know what it does.
But if you really think about it, like, why are we putting on makeup? We're putting on makeup to look more attractive. Right. Now, we're not always putting on makeup to look more attractive to a man, but don't tell me that as a woman, if you've got like a little crush, especially when you're in high school, you put a little more makeup on, you wear a dress, and then people are like, who do you like?
Yeah.
Like it's
Signals,
not an absurd observation to make. And there is something to the fact, like, we want ourselves to look more physically appealing.
Right. Actually, you know what? This brings me to something that I wanted to ask you, actually, because it's been something that I've been thinking about. So with regards to the looking nice, because like I have gone to like women's Bible studies for years. I put on makeup then. I like wear sometimes my nicest outfits, sometimes even nicer than church. Yeah. And so I think there's a lot of like intra-sex competition within that. Sometimes it's for other women that women put makeup on to be like, I'm pretty. Like maybe implicit, not necessarily thinking, but you know what comes to mind is the Mean Girls. It's like, you're like really pretty. It's like, and then like, thanks. So you agree. You think you're really pretty, So this brings me.
Got a lot of Mean Girl quotes.
I did. You know what?
It's great.
It just those are my two. Those are my two go-tos. So
she's a pusher.
Pusher
Kitty. I'm a pusher. What?
And ooh, 2 for you, Glen Coco. You go, Glen Coco. Okay, they're all out of my system now. Okay, we can move on.
And we've lost all of our male audience.
But guys, like, watch Mean Girls. You'll learn a lot about women. So, here's the thing. What I want to know is, what do you think about when you meet other women online? And I guess you're not on tons of platforms, you said, particularly. So with Discord even. So like, what is it in your mind? I know obviously there's a difference between men and women, but is there a sort of, have you ever been able to identify like a difference between like say men and the men and the women friend group wise for how you approach them or what they mean to you?
I always say I'm a pretty atypical woman in a lot of ways, where like I've always felt more comfortable. Well, not always, but since I was probably like 12 or 13, always felt more comfortable being friends with guys than with girls. Okay. And that was sort of weird in my family because I grew up with all sisters, and I started having guy friends, and they're like, who's this guy friend? And I'm like, we're just friends, shut up. And like, it really was. Yeah. And, and I've always sort of like felt comfortable in those spaces. And I like fashion. I like clothes, but like I'm not hyper girly. I don't wear makeup. I wear what I like. I'm not in it for like the trends. I just enjoy like the beauty and the aesthetic of those things. And I try to wear things that I feel are comfortable. And like actually Tech on the Discord was asking us the other day, he's like, that idea of like, can you ask women their age and their weight? And it's like,
okay, sorry, weight? Why? Well, I
brought up the weight because he didn't ask me.
I was actually like, what?
But like, no, he's just the age question. He didn't ask about the weight. Okay. Sorry, Jack. I'm not trying to throw you under the bus. Okay. But I was like, I'm the kind of woman, you can ask me my age. You can even ask me my weight, and I'm not going to be like weird about it. Right. It just is what it is, you know?
Yeah.
But like, I wouldn't do that normally because you just don't know how someone's going to react. And so like, when it comes to like the appeal of, even with men though, I'm not trying to be like hyper appealing. Like a lot of times my MO was like, well, I'm just going to put out like the normal version of me. And sometimes even like not the worst of me, but like, the plate that like, I'm not like, like here's all my crap, but like, I'm not,
this is me, guys.
I'm not going to try to impress you.
Right.
Because like, if you like me at this place, then I think we'll have smooth sailing going forward. Yeah. But I'm absolutely not going to try to impress you.
Yeah.
And I think that's just a different mindset that most women.
Okay, but then there's not most women who are on the Discord though.
No,
right?
no. I think a lot of women on the Discord are atypical. And I was actually talking with someone the other day trying to like line up like on the sort of masculine feminine line.
Am
like,
I the most extreme feminine?
You're the most feminine for sure.
That's not a surprise.
Like, yeah, just trying to like, because I don't think we have any like super hyper masculine females in the Discord. I think they're all very feminine, but I think we all trend, at least there's a part of us that trends towards the masculine.
It's the thought discussion.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Right? Like that's like up in the clouds.
Yeah.
Like I just have this image of like, oh, talking up there.
Yeah.
You know, topic wise.
Right. And that's where I think I lie, sort of in the feminine. And like I'm very much a challenger. And so like that sort of like masochistic, like I'm going to like suffer to like be better is very masculine, like a masculine trait. And that definitely lies within me.
Right.
So that's where I think I lie on that scale. But like there is something with women about they want to look good for each other too. Like you go to these like women's dessert dinners and they've got like all of these like beautiful things and like they're all dressed up to the nines.
Yeah,
and, like,
and I love it so much.
See, I'm like, I'm wildly uncomfortable. I do it because my mom loves it, but I'm like, oh my gosh, like I've got to sit here and like, you know, and just like make small chat, like small talk.
I do hate small talk though. I'd be like, can we just talk about like, you know, like which like church split was like the most devastating, and like whilst I like, you know, like drink my tea and eat my crumpets. Yeah.
See, well, I'm always like, the guys get to go camping. Like when I was in evangelical churches, when they do men events, like the guys get to go camping and shoot guns, and like we just sit and drink tea. Like this does not seem fair. I'm like, can we at least go to a cabin or something? Like.
And drink our tea there.
Yeah. Okay. Like, come on, I'll meet you halfway.
Yeah,
like,
we can do hot cocoa.
My ideal event is like go into a wood and like shoot teacups. Like that would be fun.
Oh my gosh, I'm just like, no, say it isn't so. Those poor teacups.
Just all the ones that are chipped, Andrea. Like we won't do.
We won't do the pristine ones. Okay. So here's actually here's something that I've been really thinking about with regards to in-group, out-group with women. So, because I wanted to say, I was like, do you have the same thought? And you're like, oh, but I'm actually not traditional at all. As
well,
a woman.
no, go ahead.
So that's, I'm interested to hear what you think about this. So I find it started off on Twitter, but it also kind of bled into the Bridges group as well. So there are my little friend groups, mostly of women. Like this, by the way, mostly it's men on Twitter anyway, and on my analytics, it's like 80-20 on mine. But it's mostly like women who I'm like, this is my buds, like this one, like so is she, and like the group of us are actually all friends, and like those girls especially. When they like my things, when they like because speaking of fashion Instagram, I started up a retro fashion Instagram.
Shameless.
I know, it's shameless, but it's also like, oh, hey, I'm one of those girls now. I can't be like, you know, the Instagram girls like,
those Instagram
oh, that's
girls.
me. That's me. I know. My name is vintage_bangs. Anyway, so sorry, shameless plug again. So anyway, but if sometimes I put up also those pictures on Twitter too, and when my little sweet group of friends, when those girls like my pictures or something that I particularly thought they would like, it means more.
Sure.
And also when they comment, I'm just like, oh, you thought like this, thank you. Actually, they were the ones who encouraged me to do the Instagram in the first place. So they mean. Okay, I don't want to pretend like my guy friends from Twitter as well as the Discord don't mean anything. They mean a lot, guys. You mean a lot, fellas. No, because they're, you know, like they're there with me on that sort of discussion level. But like the gals who have made their way, who are like me, who have made their way to this more masculine space, like they're my girls. I'm like, hey girl, like, hey, you're my friend. Like they mean a lot to me. And then it's also happened over on Discord as well. It's just like the girls mean a lot. And I think that there's an in-group, we're a group, like we're like we're in it together.
Well, I can definitely acknowledge like there's a feeling of like when you see a woman, you're like, oh, cool. But like, I can't say that I specifically am like, oh, like the women mean more to me than the men. Like it just, you know, like it just varies.
See,
like I don't know. And maybe
I'm
that's
trying
just
to suss
me,
it out. No,
like,
I'm trying to suss it out if it's they mean more, or it means something different?
See, to me, like, I don't think it necessarily means something different.
You are on the atypical side. No, I don't know, because I don't know if I am or not.
Well,
That's
I don't
the
know,
thing.
because like people talk about all the time how men and women can't be just friends,
Right.
and like, I think that's untrue.
Right.
Like, just in my experience of like, well, I at least know on my side, like, I can just be friends, but I've had a lot of really good friends that really feel just like completely platonic and not something outside of that. And like, even when there was something maybe on one side or the other that had feelings, like, we could still get over that and realize there's something bigger than, you know, this feeling, like,
Right.
we care about them as a person, like, you know? And so for me, it's like each individual, like, I look at Sherry and it's like, I love Sherry for a different reason than maybe I enjoy like Andrew or, you know, whoever else, you know,
In the
Gingy
group. Yeah.
on, you know,
Yeah.
on the Discord. And so like, for me, it's just, I see them more individual, not as a group. And so I'm not, yeah, I
See,
don't,
I don't.
I
Like,
don't,
that's the thing.
like,
It's
I'll
just
do.
this is my crew. This is my girls.
I mean, I'd be fine doing like a women, like, Bridges of Meaning, like, meetup thing.
Yeah.
Like, not like in person, but like, you know, having a conversation. And sometimes it is nice. We've had a couple conversations where it was
Yeah.
all women, and, you know, there's different ways that you can talk about that. But I kind of enjoy the mix. I like having both, you know, and in some ways I do feel just more comfortable, you know, being one of the guys, you know. I get to joke
Right.
around, and like, that's the thing, I'm not very easily offended, and I work in comedy, so that's what I'm
Right.
used to.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I've
yeah.
sometimes had people like message me, I'm so sorry that person said that, like,
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm not offended,
Right.
like, and honestly, like, it was kind of funny, you know, like,
Yeah.
but
No,
like,
can see that.
I feel like one of the guys. I feel like I can pal around and joke around, and I'm very sarcastic, and I'm goofy as all get out. And so for like women, sometimes you feel like you gotta be like, ugh.
Okay, and see, that's why we get along well, because I'm just like, hello, Lonely Island. Let's just listen to some of these songs from Blast from the Past wise. Yeah, you know, and that's why I think knowing that the women that you're concerned about, like, offending, they've been weeded out. In, like, they're not going to come to the Discord.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I mean, some people are more sensitive than others, and like, that's
true.
fine.
And
maybe
and
I
men
should,
too, not just women. Yeah.
Maybe I should be more sensitive. Maybe I've become desensitized, and I'm just like, it's whatever. But
Well,
like,
in the comedy world, it's like, if you're sensitive, it's like, why are you here?
well, we're all delicate flowers.
I
We
know.
just like
You're like,
we put
right.
up a wall.
You
like,
lean
I don't
in.
care about it.
Yeah. Well, okay. So maybe I thought with regards to the women thing, I thought, I'm like, oh, I think this is how it is. And so now after talking to you, I'm going to be like, oh, maybe don't universalize everything, Andrea.
And that's the key. Nothing can be universalized.
Right, yeah. So
but everything should be.
But it makes me, it makes me want to ask more people actually to get their opinions, just to see like if it's just me personally inside.
I mean, I think I'm a bit of an outlier. I do think I have a different like
make up.
Operator's like perspective.
Okay, because I was gonna say, you, with regards to the friendship thing, male friendships, female friendships, I think it depends on the people.
Sure.
Like I don't think that you can say I think speak words.
I think it's
Andrea.
much more difficult. Like,
It depends on the personality of the person, and it depends on the personality. It's like some people have a lot of willpower and are like, oh, so we have feelings. Oh well, we don't have to act on them, you know.
but yeah.
But some people are like, but I have feelings and I have to act on them.
Right.
You know.
Well, and I've been in positions where it's like, maybe one person has more feeling than the other, or you know, like, you know, it's just like one person's not ready for that, and there's like this agreement, oh, we can be friends, and then as things play out, it's clear that that's not the case, and so it gets kind of frustrating. But for me, I've like, through experience and knowing myself, because you say, oh, I could do it, and then you get in the situation, you're like, oh, I'm weak. But like, I've been in the situation on both sides, and like have really been able to like find a way to do that. But yeah, there are definitely people who can't, and that's just part of it. And then you set the boundaries and make those calls. But yeah, it's different.
I'm learning. Yeah, what we learned today is that don't generalize.
Well, and it's interesting. And we'll end on this question, but like, how is it for you being a married person in the Discord?
Right, that is a very good question. So sometimes I sort of like forget that that's even a thing to be considering. Yeah, no, it's just like, right, I'm married.
I've heard some people talk about, especially the women, and talk about the complications of that and like navigating that. And for me as a single person,
right,
it's a different world. And like,
Yes.
listen, I was not on the Discord like trolling for relationships, but
Right.
like for like for me, it was just sort of different because I didn't have to think about, like my friendships here, like and how they build here are affecting another person.
Right. Okay, so I think because I've chatted with some other married gal friends as well, like on the Discord, and so what one of them said, and it kind of like resonated with me, of like, oh right, that is true, because I didn't know how to put it into words, but you know, she is on other Discord groups as well, and she's like, you know, oh, like all these 25-year-old guys wanting to talk with me, and she's like, you know, you can only talk so far, and so into a certain, and then it gets weird. And I remember I was like, what? At first, when I first heard her say that, she said it a couple times throughout just me knowing her, and then it was like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, because it's been like, because I've done podcasting up until, well, now, but like from 2018, technically 2019, because I was on Twitter first.
Yeah.
So 2019 until now, and you know, I'd had most of my guests were male, and I didn't have any problems, but that's one conversation.
Yeah.
And so that's the thing about
The community
the
aspect.
Discord group, because you get, I guess I'll say intimate, like not purposely, but you get the more just you guys in the chat, just two vulnerable. Of you. Yeah, the more you do that, the more you delve into friendship wise, and it might feel like, oh, this reminds me a little bit of like maybe knowing you too well, or like, you know, kind of whatever, connecting too well. And so it's something that I have to be, like I said, I run a little bit on the naive or oblivious side. So it's something that, especially since I heard it described as like, oh, you can only go so far because then it gets weird. So that kind of explicit explanation helps me to sort of be a little bit more, yeah, okay. So next, just be a little bit more mindful about how long, if it's just you, just two of you, especially, I have my favorites. Sorry, that's just how it goes. Especially if it's your favorites, and they're single, you know, it just sort of, no, I'm married too. Anyone.
Anybody.
If your favorites, favorite and dudes, and just not being on like into the night. You know, not be on for hours and hours. Like, I'm not going to be like, oh no, so-and-so just left and it's just the two of us. I mean, I've got to go,
I guess it's the consistency of it, right? Right. And like, there's just certain things. And I think for most of the men that I've interacted with, it doesn't seem like they're being disrespectful. No. Like, they just want to genuinely talk, and they're not like there's not this ulterior motive of like, oh, like, I'm gonna get her one-on-one, you know, like, my gosh. So, but like, you can have a long conversation or even into the night, and it's not necessarily mean.
Right. It just consists, it's how
you're just
often
having conversation, but it's like
person.
You do that once and then like whatever. Yeah. But then it's like
it was like 5 times in a row.
It starts getting sort of complicated, and like, I think
just being mindful. Yeah. Just being like noticing trends and noticing where like, you know, just like how I'm acting. Like, I don't know. Sometimes I'm like, oh, am I flirty? I don't know. Like, I don't even know how to flirt, but I think I can be, you know, but it's all in good fun. I don't, I'm saying things I don't know if I mean, but.
What do you mean by flirt, right? Because
I know. I call Luke V-neck. I'm like, is that flirty? I don't know.
Marry me.
Marry me. Oh my gosh. I said that to someone, and I thought it was funny, and then it looked a little bit not as funny as I thought.
Well, it's just an interesting dynamic, because on one hand, like, you being married, it almost seems like,
safe, right?
Safe, like, you're closed, off the market, and then as a single person, it's sort of like there could be the potential for this feeling of like, oh, she's single,
right?
Gotta snatch her up, but like, you know, I haven't felt like it hasn't felt like that in the Discord, but like that's where this tricky part is too. But like, as a single person, it's like, you know, I can operate and just be friends, and like let's say something does,
let the chips fall where they may.
Let's say something does come up, like
let's just say
I have like
you can
freedom.
go that way,
like I have freedom to explore that if I'd like. As a married person, there is sort of like this thing where it's like, okay, I'm having these relationships and we're talking about like serious, intimate, intellectual things. For some people that can be like definitely a big factor in like attraction.
And there's an influx of guys.
And for other people feeling attracted or, connected to you. And then it's like this complication of like, oh, I don't want to disrespect my husband.
Right. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
No, and I do like even he's in the background, like when I'm making my pies and he's like coming into the frame sometimes. It's like, and that's hubs, I think it can be complicated, but it's something that it's actually sort of straightforward of like my rules are like, don't talk into the night with one person. And sometimes, okay. And I have like, that's one of the reasons why I have the rules is like, I don't want to pretend like I'm like, and I've stayed away from that line. I haven't even come to it, but it's more like, oh yeah, after hearing Sally talk about that. Sorry, I guess Sally, I outed you. You're the one who said
I don't think she'd care.
Whatever. The thing about the talking to a point. But after she said that, and then I was like, oh yeah, I guess I have done that a bit, and maybe I should like be more mindful of like how often that happens.
Yeah, it's like good for mindfulness, but like some of those things can be incredibly innocent and
until they're not. Right. So that's so that's why I'm like, okay, so just like don't talk, just try to, hopefully there's always 3 people when I sign off. But if not, again, I'm not gonna be like, wait, there's only 2 of us, bye, I've got to go, I have rules. Like I'm not like that, but it's just sort of like wrapping up, soonish is sort of in my mind. Just being mindful. I know. I was like, whatever that means.
Well, we're going to get canceled for this conversation. So, Andrea.
Gosh. It was nice knowing you.
Yes, of course. Well, I don't have a following, so I have nothing to lose. So.
Okay. Well, I mean, actually, my following is very like I think they're like along this.
Oh,
like,
no, they're
niche.
not going to care.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just joking. But yes, lovely talking with you. I thought this was a lot of fun.
Well, thank you for hosting me in your home.
Of course. Thanks so much for listening. If you liked Andrea and you want to catch more of her stuff, I've put a link down below, so check her out. She's great. But with that, I'm going to close with the Serenity Prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference.